Former Arizona gubernatorial candidate in loser, Kari Lake, believes that elections are only fair when Republicans win.
We've got a lot of great candidates in for the Republican Party, unlike the Democrat Party. They roll people out like Katie Hobbs and Joe Biden, and they expect us to believe that that's what people want, and we know people don't want that. Meanwhile, we've got great candidates on the Republican Party, and on our side, we've got so many great candidates that if our elections were really fair, I believe the ranks of Congress, the Senate, I think a White House, I think all the state governorships would be Republican if elections were fair.
There's so many great candidates. I mean, I can't really name any, but there are so many great candidates. What, like Herschel Walker? is that what you mean?
This election is about the people.
Well, they weren't up to that. The people, I mean. Kind of went a little flaccid. Just saying. Okay, what about Dr. Oz? Also, didn't do very well. A lot of the Trump guys, people like Kari Lake, didn't win their elections. But she says, it's because they're obviously they're not fair. We're not doing fair elections here. No, that's delusional. Delusional. Now, I'm going to break down why. But first, I'm actually going to address that a substantive part of this, and there is substance, and that are elections fair? Interesting. Well, I actually don't think they are, but not for the same reason that Kari Lake thinks it is. She thinks it's you got voter fraud, you got all the people, you got the mules, 2,000 of them, I hear. No, it doesn't have anything to do with fraud, voter fraud, or anything like that. No, the reason I say that elections, in America have an issue with unfairness is things like gerrymandering, which, by the way, both sides do engage in gerrymandering districts. Okay, which basically allows politicians to pick their voters instead of the voters being able to pick the politicians. And of course, there's issues of voter suppression. Things like removing access to ballot boxes, making it very difficult to vote, not allowing voter holidays, things like that. Registration deadlines, not being automatically registered to vote. Things like that. Voter ID. You also have primary contests, for example, in the Democratic Party, that are slanted towards establishment figures. How so? Well, you have right-wing billionaires that can spend, and by the way, not just right-wing billionaires, but corporations, etc., that are able to spend unlimited amounts of money to influence who the Democratic candidates ultimately are in the primary process. And so, not only that, but of course, we saw in this most recent election, Democratic groups spending tons and tons of money in Republican primaries. So you have, the influence of big money in these primary processes. Now, the difference here in that is that Democrats use that money, and it's fairly effective, to elevate the most insane Republican candidates. Now, right-wing billionaires, when they spend money in Democratic primaries, they end up elevating actually the most corporate-friendly conservative Democrats. Now, mainstream media will tell you that you have to vote for them because, well, look at the insane right-wingers. Now, in both situations, guess what? Who wins? No, big corporations, donors, status quo. Mainstream media, who, by the way, is the recipient of a lot of this money from ads. So now, that said, Kari Lake, as I already mentioned, wrong. I mean, she thinks that, if elections were fair, we didn't have the Democrat voter fraud, obviously the country would vote for Republicans because the country's more conservative. Well, no, it's not. The country is not more conservative. When you break things down by issues, progressive priorities, not mainly Democratic, but progressive priorities, things that are, have been pointed out as being too left for Democrats, the Democratic Party, do really, really well. Incredibly well, in fact. Recent studies have found that more than 75% of Americans want to limit campaign spending. Right now, the DNC has voted to allow unlimited corporate cash, taking those corporate donations. A majority of Americans of all political stripes also support a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. Now, Democrats will give lip service to it, but right now they haven't really done anything about that. And of course, Republicans are like, we must have more spending in election. We must have more billionaire money. But even 66% of Republican voters say, no, I would like to overturn Citizens United. 64% of Americans support Medicare for all. That's a single-payer healthcare system. 80% of registered voters support a Green New Deal. This is according to a Yale GMU study. That includes 64% of Republicans that support a Green New Deal. Vast majority of Americans also support legalizing cannabis. Majority of Americans want workers to be on corporate boards. It's like a worker co-op model like they have in Germany. Have 12 weeks of paid medical and family leave. They want to raise taxes on rich people, corporations, allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices, to ban government officials from being able to trade individual stocks in the stock market. Those are the things that the American people across all the political spectrum, they want. Progressive policies. Now, which party is more in favor of these things? Well, look, Democrats have progressives, and these progressive members have floated these ideas. And generally, the Democratic Party does give lip service to some of these ideas. But at the same time, you don't see them do these things in a very meaningful way. And let me give you an example of this, right? So the Democratic Party says, well, we would love to do allow Medicare to negotiate prescription drugs. And they did. But wait, they praised this deal as the most progressive move ever. But at the end of the day, it only included 10 prescription drugs. And that's because Big Pharma came in, lobbied certain members to be against allowing more drugs to be included on this. And so you have 10. Now, insulin is one of the big ones that is involved. And by the way, for people that are taking in those 10 drugs, that's fantastic. For insulin, fantastic, great, lovely. We want to take that and we want to do more drugs, more prescription drugs. We could do so much better. Now, when it comes to Republicans, of course, none of these elected Republicans actually care about these issues. There might be some that might give some lip service on the issue, especially of prescription drugs, but it's the same kind of lip service they give to protecting Medicare and Social Security, which is very popular with the Republican base. But we've seen it in their own words behind closed doors and sometimes out in, public on video saying, we're going to get rid of, we're going to sunset Medicare and Social Security. So that said, this is why Republicans are not popular, because they don't stand on any sort of popular policy at all. It's give more tax cuts for the rich. That's what Trump did. His biggest accomplishment is to, cut taxes for corporations and rich people. That's it. And so, look, they don't, by the way, they do win in a lot of places too. And Democrats aren't going out there saying, voter fraud. No, they do win in certain places. And they've won in a lot of governorships. They've won a lot of state houses, things like that. Generally, when it's a more establishment Republican, they have a lot of money behind them, a lot of advertising, and sometimes the Democratic candidate tends to try to run as Republican light. And, when you have the choice between Republican light and a Republican, a lot of people just choose a Republican. But anyway, now, some Republicans, though, like Trump, ran as a faux populist. That's why he won in 2016. He says, I'm going to take on the establishment. Of course, it was all lies, but that's one of his messages. I'm going to take on the establishment. He also, of course, put out racist attacks against immigrants and Muslims, which many Republican voters do enjoy, by the way. But also said things like, I can't be bought. In fact, I was buying everyone else I give them money, they did whatever the hell I wanted them to, which of course was to give more money to Donald Trump and his business. And so he was actually right. It's one of the more unintentional correct things that Trump had ever said. Trump had also talked about single-payer healthcare before, like he was for it, before he was against it. It was before, of course, the money came in. And of course, was even in favor of allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drugs, again, until Big Pharma came in and said, actually, no, you're going to do exactly what we want because you're a bitch. Oh, am I saying that they gave him the money and he did everything that they wanted him to? Yes, it's exactly what I'm saying. He's a faux populist. He didn't mean any of it. When he said he wanted to drain the swamp, he wanted to drain the tax money into his pockets, and that's exactly what he did. That's exactly what he did. Now, you compare that to progressives, right? Progressives who run on populist ideas. Who won? John Fetterman, Maxwell Alejandro Frost, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They won their elections because they ran on progressive issues. I think in a lot of cases, not in all of them, of course. A lot of cases, though, if you get a chance to vote for progressive policy ideas, or take the politician out of it, when you have ballot measures that are progressive, raising minimum wage, that does very, very well in red states. Because, of course, yes, average working people who might be Republicans, like, yes, of course I want to raise my wages. So they're going to choose things that are more progressive because progressive policies and priorities are actually going to help regular working people. Now, so look, I know there are media pundits and politicians, in the Democratic side especially, but Kari Lake's one on the Republican side who thinks, oh no, this country is very, very conservative. No, it's not. It's not. The overall point here is she has taken a very nuanced and complicated issue, and unsurprisingly saying, no, it doesn't have anything to do with that. No, just election fraud. Ridiculous. You didn't lose because of fraud. No, you lost because you're crazy. And that's it.